Yesterday, I was just scrolling through Twitter. You could call it X. I still call it Twitter, but I was just scrolling, doing the regular Thanksgiving festivities. By the way, happy Thanksgiving for the people who celebrated. And I was doing the regular things, watching football in the background, eating turkey, chilling. And then this one thing caught my eye, and I was like, what is going on? The post basically said Brewers reportedly concerned about payroll from MLB trade rumors. Shout out them. And I was like, wait, what? You just signed Brandon Woodruff. What are we doing here? So today we're going to talk about the concerns that come about this, what it means for the team, and what it means for the league. So anyways, roll that thing. So I don't know if you guys have been living under a rock, but as of recently, one of the biggest things that was talked about a lot from the Brewers was the mutual option that was declined from Brandon Woodruff, which ultimately there's really not much to blame there because he did have a fantastic season. Although he wasn't there for the offseason, he did have a fantastic regular season. With him declining that mutual, that led to the Brewers sending a qualifying offer of $22.05 million. And deep down, if you ask me, I didn't think Brandon Woodruff was going to sign that. I thought he was going to go more long-term, try to find a contract or a club that will offer him a long-term contract. But surprisingly, he did sign. He is with the Brewers for the 2026 season, and this broke history for the Brewers. Brandon Woodruff was the highest paid Brewer pitcher in a single season in franchise history. So I think this has led to a lot of Brewer fans thinking, hey, we actually might spend money, because the Brewers have always been a team that has not spent a lot of money. They've usually been one of the few teams that is under the payroll. They're no Dodgers, they're no Mets, but they spend money, just not a lot of it. They're usually in the bottom of the list. With them always being in the bottom of the list, I think people were surprised that they offered that qualifying offer to Brandon Woodruff and that he did come back, because this starting rotation is absolutely powerful with him. Quinn Priester, Freddie Peralta, Brandon Woodruff, Mizorowski showed some great glimpses. Chad Patrick showed some great glimpses. So this starting rotation is absolutely fantastic for the Brewers. Now, with them spending money, I think a lot of fans, and maybe I kind of thought that this was going to happen, that the Brewers might actually go out there and spend money, because they beat the Cubs. They went in competition with the Dodgers. Of course, they did not look good against the Dodgers. Let's make that very clear. The Brewers looked really bad against the Dodgers. The offense was just not producing what they needed to produce. The pitching was all right. It wasn't great, but it was all right. It showed a few glimpses. A few mistakes were made, but in the bottom line, the pitching wasn't 100% the issue. It was just the offense not producing what they needed to produce for them to at least compete with the Dodgers. So with this result, I think a lot of Brewers fans thought, and also people in general just thought, hey, maybe the Brewers are going to go out there and shop the market, see what they could get, see if they could upgrade, see if they could get any tools that could possibly benefit them. Because if you really think about it, the Brewers were one series away from making it to the World Series. They did pretty good in the regular season. They unexpectedly took the Central Division. Not a lot of people thought that they could do that. They went, beat the Cubs. They got the first seed. So they did all these things. So at the end of the day, you would think, hey, we're pretty close. Maybe we could buy something to get to the World Series. Now, with this article saying that the Brewers are concerned about the payroll, this just tells you that they're not very much going to shop as of now. Now, this doesn't completely mean that they're not going to go shop for other players, but what does this mean for the future of other people on the team? Because they could very much go out there and try to trade one of the players that they do have, so they could make more space, so they could acquire more people for the next season. The first name that comes up to mind when you talk about possibly trading people would have to be Freddie Peralta. Freddie Peralta has officially entered the last year of his contract. The Brewers did choose his club option, and this is his last year. So one of the biggest things that people are talking about is, will Freddie Peralta get dealt with now that Brandon Woodruff was signed? Now, originally you'd think, well, why would they do that? Because Freddie Peralta, at the end of the day, did have a pretty good season last year, and he has been the ace for the Milwaukee Brewers. So one of the things is, why would they do that? Because he did have a 2.70 ERA with a whip of 1.08, so he had great numbers, but this isn't the first time that the Brewers are willing to let go somebody that is in their last year. If you really think to mind, one of the names that comes up to mind in recent times would have to be Corbin Burnes. When you start looking about extending contracts, you look into a few players in the Brewers that are going to eventually need these extensions. You look into Sal Frelick, you look into Andrew Vaughn, who was an absolute great acquisition from the White Sox. Sal Frelick has been absolutely fantastic defensive-wise and also the offensive-wise. He did take a huge leap, so his payday is coming as well. These two have 2 years left of control, so what exactly are the Brewers going to do? Are the Brewers eventually going to pay these guys, or are they going to do the same thing that they have been doing of recently? Is their last year they just decide to trade them and see what they could get from other teams that are willing to trade, are willing to pay these players? Now, going back to Freddie Peralta, I think necessarily if they do decide to part ways from him and decide to trade him to a different team, the Brewers wouldn't be in the worst type of place. They'd have Quinn Priester, they'd have Robert Gasser, they'd have Freddie Peralta, they have a lot of tools in the pitching side of things, so it wouldn't be necessarily the end of the world. I think the only eye-opening thing is that they have consistently not paid these people and have instead traded them away. Now, this goes on to my next point. One of the biggest topics that a lot of people have been speaking about and have been talking about every single end of season the last few years is the lockout that is supposed to happen next year, because, hey, it's time to decide. Are we going to add a cap floor? Are we going to add a cap ceiling? Like, what are we doing exactly here? With the Brewers having a lot of success the last season, you'd think, hey, they might finally have to spend money because they were one series away from the World Series. And after the World Series, they could have possibly won. The Blue Jays are over there spending money on Sonny Gray, spending money on these other people. And yes, I completely understand Milwaukee. Hey, it's a small market. But to a certain point, they're usually the ones that are usually ranked in the bottom where they don't spend as much. And once again, I'm not here to say I know finances, I know what they could spend, I know what they can't spend. But when other teams are doing it, you kind of start wondering, hey, why is this team, after having so much success after success, just not spending enough money? And you start talking about the cap for the cap space. What is going to happen next year if the lockout does happen? So, to a certain point, this is, I think, something that you kind of have to start thinking about, because, hey, we're 1 year away from this decision being made, from a potential lockdown happening. So at the end of the day, I think this is a valid thing to talk about. I want to hear what you guys have to think about on this specific topic. Is there going to be a cap floor? Is there going to be a cap ceiling? Please let me know down below. If you guys could do me a huge favor and like MLB news and these types of videos, please subscribe, like down below, give a comment. I'm planning on uploading every single week and planning on doing this for the foreseeable future. I enjoy doing these type of videos. So anyways, I'll catch you guys on the next one.